Good morning! This is Johnny B from South Central PA coming to you live this morning. Good morning. I hope you guys are doing great, that you're up and energized and that you powered up your body and that you're feeling great today, because you know what? Today is today. We have today. Hey, just a minute. Give me a second. Here you go. I had to let Jackie in the house. He's ready for breakfast. Hey Mo, how you doing? So, sourdough starter recipe. Okay, now there's a deeper meaning to this, okay? Hey Matt, hey Natalie. But I love bread, and I learned how to make my own sourdough starter. It's very easy. I'm gonna teach you how. Go to the health food store. We have one over in Spring Grove. Hey Wolfgang. We have one over in Spring Grove that sells organic grains, and they'll grind it up for you. So buy a little bit of wheat and a little bit of rye. Those are really good. And you bring them home, have them ground up for bread, and bring them home and take a bowl or a jar and add a little water until you kind of have the consistency of maybe waffle batter, and set it on your shelf, and just set it on your shelf. And then every day or two, you may need to add a little more water or a little more flour, but let it set for a couple of days. And pretty soon you're going to see bubbles. You're going to see bubbles in this batter, and that is the yeast. Our grains have wild yeast in them, and you can harness those. Actually, let me back up, because that's not really what you do. What you do every day, you take a quarter cup of what you've made. Say start with a cup of flour and a cup of water, mix it up, and set it out and put a towel over it, but don't seal it up. And then day two, take a quarter cup of that out, add a quarter cup of flour, quarter cup of water, stir it up, put the towel back over it. In 3 or 4 days, maybe a week, and you do this every day. It's called feeding the yeast. Pretty soon you'll be smelling a yeasty smell, and it'll get frothy and it'll bubble. And what you're doing is actually growing this yeast. The flour has sugars in it, and the yeast is naturally occurring on the grain, and when they grind it up, it doesn't kill all of them. And so as you're feeding these yeast and they grow, they colonize, they will actually kill any bad bacteria in there. They'll overcome them. Okay, I did this with regular flour from the store one year, several years ago. And my wife and me, I was very concerned, because the first week it smelled terrible. Oh my goodness, it smelled terrible. But I was faithful, and I kept feeding it, and pretty soon the good yeast overcame. See, I had bad bacteria in there, and they were growing in this environment. But the yeast, the wild yeast from the air and from the grains, overcame them in time and killed all the bad bacteria. And after about 2 weeks of this stinky mess, it actually turned into a beautiful sourdough starter. And then you can take a little bit of that and leaven your whole dough batch and let it set and ferment and rise, and it's just beautifully luscious. Okay, why do I tell you that? Besides, maybe you want to make some bread from wild yeast, which is delicious. And one other thing is, depending on where you live, your yeast can taste different. So like in San Francisco, they have a very famous sourdough bread that because they have a certain strain of yeast there. And you know, our ancestors that came over from Europe, very often the ladies would take some of their starter and put it on a handkerchief and roll it up, and that's how they brought their yeast from Europe over here to start their bread when they got here. So it's been done for years and years and years. Why do I tell you this story? Here's why. See, I'm studying a whole lot about the microbiome in our intestines, and I've been talking about this, and the research that I've done, I want to tell you a couple of things. First of all, there's a lot of information now. It's a very hot topic, and there's a lot of research going on, but there are a few facts that can be scientifically discovered. Scientists have to be able to postulate a thesis and then prove it and prove it again and prove it again. So in other words, they have to repeat things before they're going to say this is how things are. Well, the gut biota is so diverse. I mean, we have 3 pounds of bacteria. 3 pounds of your body weight is the bacteria, the biota that lives in your guts and on your skin and in your organs. So these are important things that God put in us. And I think where I'm going with this is that a lot of the health issues that we have these days, in my opinion, and the breaking research is saying, much of our health problems are because we have an out of balance system in our gut biota. And what that means is that the natural bacteria, there's thousands of, if not 100,000 different strains of bacteria that are all meant to work together in balance to break the nutrients from our food and introduce it into our bloodstream. And so what I think is happening, but my next point is, it's so complex that even Watson, the IBM computer, it will take probably hundreds of years for that thing to churn out every possible scenario so that you can, so the scientists will be satisfied to tell the medical community what to do. Okay, so that's how science works. They're not going to say anything if they can't prove it over and over and over and over. And I love that. That's science. That's good science. However, guys, I'm 55. I don't have time. I don't have time. And maybe you don't either. So I propose that we use clinical data and empirical data, or maybe I'm saying that wrong because I'm not a scientist, but experience and common sense and wisdom given by the Holy Spirit, if you believe in such a thing, and gut feeling and experiments, okay? That's kind of what we have to deal with because we're in our midlife. We don't have time for Watson to crank out all these algorithms to tell us what to do to make our guts healthy. And you know what? I don't think God intended for us to rely on science for everything. Why would we need faith? And why would He give us intellect? And why would He put His Spirit inside of us if we have to have everything proven to us? Okay, so hang with me. So we know that if you do your sourdough starter properly, if you feed it properly, if you care for it, the good yeast overcomes the bad bacteria. It's the same thing in our guts, in my opinion. I think what we have going on with a Western diet is way too much sugar. And so those bacteria that are in our gut naturally to break down the sugar, to feed our bloodstream the glycogen that it needs to fuel our cells, they are overgrowing. They're growing too fast because we're just constantly feeding it breads, refined starches, sugars, high fructose corn syrup, and so we're out of balance. So, as complicated as this sounds, I'm reading a book now called Wired to Eat, and I don't believe I'm not going to call that the Bible of how to be healthy, but Rob Wolf makes some great points, and he tries to boil it down for you and me. This simple way to have better health, and I believe this with all my heart. I believe that if we go back to whole foods and we cut out processed foods, we'll be much more healthy, and we'll be able to create within us an environment for the good bacteria to grow. Okay, so let's talk about autoimmune. Autoimmune it's been proven that it's an inflammation problem. Just like, as we discussed several weeks ago, heart attacks and heart problems, and hardening of the arteries and the plaque buildup. It's not cholesterol, it's inflammation that causes that. So I posted last night actually a story on Alzheimer's, and the interesting thing is that they're calling Alzheimer's a fire in the brain, which means that there's an inflammation in the brain going on. So adding all these things together, you can see how important it is. Whether science can prove it or not, it just makes sense that if we can lower the inflammation in our bodies and in our hearts and in our blood vessels and our organs and our joints and our brain, we can feel better and be more healthy. So for autoimmune, you particular people, the doctors can't tell you what causes it. Okay, our medical community is so good at diagnosing and prescribing, but they're not very good at prevention and the prevention. So that's where, us wild people that are using common sense and don't have to be worried about lawsuits when if we get beyond what science has proven, we come along and say, look, we think we can help people with their health. We think there's a diet problem, a food problem in our gut, and it's very simple to correct. It doesn't mean it corrects it for everybody, because everybody's gut biome is different. But a good place to start, if you are autoimmune, if you have lupus, fibromyalgia, they're saying even now Lyme's disease and dementia, all these things that are inflammation based, if you will take your diet, take that first step, commit 2 weeks to eating whole fruits and vegetables, they can be frozen, and lean proteins and healthy fats, and cut out all grains and white potatoes, all rice, all sugar, and all processed foods. If you'll try it for 2 weeks, PM me back and tell me how you feel. If it didn't work for you, then it didn't work for you. But if it works for you and you feel better, oh my goodness, you don't have to live in pain anymore. You can start the road to recovery. So one of the things we see with people that have irritable bowel syndrome and diverticulitis and the common gut and gastrointestinal problems is that they're malnourished. Their body is not taking in the nutrients they need because it's not in balance. And so one of the things that we need to do is go to Whole Foods, and we need to supplement with the very best supplements we can to help speed up our health. You can do it with just food, but I think it'll take a lot longer because our food just doesn't have the vitamin content that it used to. So I suggest, from my experience and my experimentation on myself, that if you go to a Whole Foods diet, try it for 2 weeks. Try it for a week, for goodness sakes. You have to do some planning. You have to go to the store and get some good food. Plan out your meals, but eat a lean protein and fruits and vegetables and call it good. Cut out, especially if you're autoimmune, cut out grains, sugars, potatoes, rice, processed foods, and also dairy. Dairy might be a trigger for you. So cut out cheese and dairy for a while, not forever. Here's the thing, guys, if we get our guts back balanced, we can start adding the foods that we love back in a small proportion. But also what I would say and suggest is that you go ahead and find the very best supplements you can, so that you are enhancing your healing in your gut. There's a couple of products for you folks with inflammation in your intestines that I will suggest to you. It's aloe vera and cat's claw. They're very good at reducing the inflammation in your GI tract, so that you can start this process of starving out the bad bacteria and to where they're in balance with all the others. And that's what we do when we go to a whole food situation and lower our carbs a little bit, is that we actually trim the bad stuff back to where everything's in balance. So, hey, I know that's a lot of information this morning. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but God gave me a brain and He gave me eyes, and there's a ton of literature out there of people that are studying this stuff. And the reason they're studying this stuff is because our medical system is not dealing with the problem. We're getting sicker and sicker and sicker. They are wonderful. Doctors, I respect them so much. But I just don't think they're hitting the root of the problem. And I believe that big business, big agriculture, our government, I mean, there's money things in play here, guys. And let's just be honest with ourselves. Companies that make sugary cereals for your kids to eat in the morning, they know what's going to happen. They know that there's a trigger in your body that when you eat sugar, dopamine is released. They know it's science, okay? And they're using the science to make money. And that's okay. We need to use science to become more healthy so that we can be healthier people and conserve more people and be the best we can be so that we can help others. And that's the goal here. One last thing, guys. If you have children or grandchildren that are going to school, you know they're going to be exposed to a lot of stuff. And I want to invite you to take a look at an incredible, probably the most comprehensive children's chewable vitamin that I've ever seen. If you're interested, PM me. I'll send you some information. You can take a look at it. $10 a month keeps your kid, gives your kid all your 29 essential vitamins and minerals. It's incredible. You can go out and we encourage you to go find something better. So, hey, PM me. I'll let you take a look at it. Your children deserve this. There's nothing sadder than having a sick child, man. It's you just feel so sorry for them. So anyway, I love you guys. Sorry it was so long. I hope your few people are interested in this topic because I'm just fascinated with it. As always, my hope for you is that you dream big, you love large, work hard, eat really good whole foods, and take awesome vitamins and be your best self now. If you have any questions, be sure to comment or PM me. I'd love to discuss some of this stuff with you smart people out there. All right, take care. Happy Tuesday.